In this video, we are going to explore some of Unity's UI system features. We're going to create a menu scene with a background, a title, and a start button. We're going to use anchors to allow our scene to work on different screen sizes. Note that I have set my platform in the build settings to Android to try out different resolutions. I have already created a 2D Unity project with all of the assets that I will need to demonstrate some of the features of the UI system. First, I'm going to use the example set up in this scene with 3 buttons and a text. I have placed the UI elements where I would like for them to be. But as I change the size of the screen, you notice some of the UI elements disappear. In larger screen sizes, the UI elements are very small and difficult to read. We are going to use some of our UI settings and change them to help with these issues. In my game view, I'm going to select a resolution that will be my reference. Next, I'm going to start working with the quit button. It needs to remain near the bottom right corner of the screen. So that is where I'm going to anchor it. Anchors are a powerful way to control the position and size of the UI elements relative to their parent. When I set anchors, I can specify several positions in the parent, usually one in each corner of the parent's UI element rect. When this happens, the UI element will try to remain or maintain a uniform distance to the anchor points, forcing it to move or resize along with its parent. Anchor presets already exist to help with this task. With the quit button selected, within the rect transform component, I can click on the icon above the word anchors in the inspector. I can click on any of the presets to set the anchor of my UI element. Note that if I press Shift, it will also set the pivot of the UI element, and if I press Alt, it will also set the position of the element. While pressing Shift and Alt, I click at the bottom right anchor preset. Notice this changes the position of the button to the very bottom corner, and the pivot point is also changed. I can add some space to the right and the bottom so that it looks a little bit better. I can try different screen resolutions, and my quit button never leaves its corner now. In a similar way, I'm going to anchor the other UI elements. I'm going to anchor the title to the top center of the screen and the play and settings button or credits button to the center. Once that's done, different screen resolutions do not impact the position of the UI elements to their anchors. The only item left to handle is the size. I want my buttons to be larger on larger screens. So for that, I need to modify the canvas settings, particularly the settings of the canvas scaler. There are 3 scale modes available. The constant pixel size mode makes all UI elements retain the same pixel size regardless of the screen size. This is the default value of the canvas. The Scale with Screen Size mode adjusts the sizes and positions of the UI elements according to a referenced resolution. If the current resolution is larger than the reference resolution, the canvas will maintain the reference resolution while scaling up the elements to match the target resolution. Finally, with the Constant Physical Size mode, the positions of the UI elements are specified in physical units such as millimeters or points. This requires the correct reporting of the screen DPI. We are going to set that property to scale with screen size and use 1280 by 720 for the reference resolution. If I pick different sizes, large or small, the buttons will grow or shrink as needed. Let's move on to another scene to review these concepts. I am now going to create a menu in this menu scene. To start, we're going to add a background image. I'm going to first add an image for the background. It will be added in the hierarchy as a child of the canvas. When I select the image, which I'm renaming background, I can change the source image property to the image of my choice, which is actually called background. I need to fix the size and aspect ratio for a better look. In the Rect Transform component, I can change the width and the height of the image to 1280 by 720. These are the dimensions of the image. I also need to fix the position back to 0, 0. This looks better. However, when I shrink the game view, I can only see a part of the background image on the canvas, as if the camera is too close. This is normal. If the game view is set to something too small, it displays only the portion of the image that fits. If the game was run on a device with a large enough resolution, we would see the entire background image. Many games support only one resolution. That is what I'm going to do here for this menu. The canvas scaler will help. When I select the canvas in the hierarchy in the inspector, I can see the canvas scaler component. For the menu, I'm going to select the Scale with Screen Size mode. I'm going to set the reference resolution to 1280 by 720. I'm also going to slide the Match Width or Height all the way to the right to match the height. Now, if I modify the size of the scene view, I can see the full background image in the game view. If I switch to resolution that is much wider, then the background image no longer covers the entire screen. To fix this, I'm going to select the background and add an aspect ratio fitter component. It will automatically set the aspect ratio value to the current ratio of the image's Rect Transform. I'm going to switch the aspect mode to envelope parent. The image will automatically resize to once again fill again the whole screen. I am now going to add an image for the title. This image is not going to be full screen. I'm going to rename it title and assign to its source image property the header label image. I can click on Set Native Size to set the width and the height to that of the image. For the title, we are going to set anchors. To see different anchor presets, I'm going to select the title in the hierarchy and then click on the rectangle above Anchors field in the Rect Transform component. Now all anchor presets can be seen. These are the most common settings, but you can also customize them. If I choose the top left corner, then the title remains at the same distance from the top left corner when the window is resized. If I choose to set the title to full screen, then the title will grow or shrink to keep the amount of unoccupied space constant. Feel free to try this out when setting up the UI for your projects to make sure that your elements respond to different screen sizes as expected. If I choose to anchor the title to the top center preset, I can see the 4 triangular handles representing the anchors. Note that you do not have to use anchor presets. You can set your anchors as you would like by grabbing them and moving them around. You can move them all together or split them. The pivot is another property of the Rect Transform that you can set as needed. The pivot is the point around which all transformations are made. The pivot uses normalized coordinate. The height and the width values goes from 0 to 1, where 0, 0 is the bottom left corner and 1, 1 is the top right corner. It is important to understand that the position of a UI element is set relative to the anchors. A 0, 0 position means the distance from the anchors. Let's refocus on the menu scene. Let's go back to the background image. When I added the aspect ratio fitter, some of the background texture was cropped off the screen at times. To fix this, I can disable the aspect ratio fitter first, then I can set the pivot so that X is 0.5 and Y is 0. My anchor point for the background is now the bottom center. Then I can re-enable the aspect ratio fitter and the ground is no longer cropped. Let's now add a start button. I'm going to rename it Start Button. I'm going to set the anchors to bottom stretch so that it stretches horizontally if the screen size changes. You can hold Alt and Shift when selecting the anchor to also set the position and the pivot. I'm going to slightly modify the X for the anchors by setting the min to 0.2 and the max to 0.8. I'm also going to change the left and right to 123, the height to 80, and the position for Y to 300. I also need to change the text of the button so that it reads Start Game. I am also going to change the font using the asset I have in the fonts folder. I can simply drag my font into the font field, and I can so change the color to better match my title using the color picker. The font is going to be set to 50 so that it's easier to read. You can also set the image for buttons just the same way you set an image for the background. It's the same component. But images rarely scale, and especially not uniformly. Buttons often come in different sizes, so we can use the 9-slice scaling technique to use only one small image that scales to fit all button sizes. The figure shows how the technique works. The corners do not scale. The edges, top, right, down, and left only scale in one direction, horizontally and vertically, and the middle scales in both directions. Before we can use such an image, we need to set it up. I'm going to select my button square image in the project window. In the inspector, I'm going to check that this texture type is set to Sprite, 2D, and UI, and apply the change if necessary. Next, I'm going to open the Sprite editor and set the border values to 60 for left, right, bottom, and top. I'm going to repeat this process for the other image for the button called Button Square Pressed. Now the images are ready. I'm going to select the Start button. I'm going to change the image type property to Sliced using the drop-down menu if needed. I'm going to change the transition property to Sprite Swap using the drop-down menu. For the source image, I'm going to use the button square image file for the pressed sprite, the button square pressed image file, and for all of the others, the button square image file. Ideally, we would use different images to better visualize the states of the button. If I change the screen size, the game view still displays all the elements in the menu in a way that looks nice and visible. Thank you for watching.